People say, well, why down east? Well, when I lived out in Alberta, people say, well, where are you going? Oh, I'm going back home. Where at? Well, down east, Nova Scotia, right? So that's why I had down east tours. So being a tour guide for the last 10 years, tour guide as a driver, typically our tours are 5 to 6 hours. We cater to guests coming off the cruise ships and hotels. And we're going to Peggy's Cove is the top draw. Probably about 85% of our tours go to Peggy's Cove. We do the Annapolis Valley wine tasting, walk on the ocean floor, sightseeing. We also do Lunenburg, South Shore, Mahone Bay, Oak Island, and Fisherman's Cove. This is actually a hard draw to bring people here, just because of the Nova Scotia advertising. People want to go to Peggy's Cove, or thank you. Thank you for fun. So I had to change my marketing because this is an untapped little gem. So my Fisherman's Cove tour changed to Halifax, Titanic, Fisherman's Cove. People love the Titanic connection. So I also do longer tours that are 8 hours or longer. I've done tours that are multiple days, overnights. Sometimes we'll go down to the valley overnight and then do the South Shore. I've done tours that are 4 days. I've done tours 6 days, 8 days. Last year I did a tour that was 17 days. And basically, if people see my website or Facebook page, we had Mr. and Mrs. Claus. And they looked like Santa Claus and they played the part for the last 16 years. Had them for 17 days, fantastic. So multi-day tour, and all of my tours are customizable, even a 5-day tour, say, or a 5-hour tour. This is where we're going to go. What do you want to see? What do you want to do? And I kind of customize based on your interest. So for a multi-day tour, a lot more planning is involved. And typically we're going down Cape Breton or to Prince Edward Island or to New Brunswick. So it really kind of depends on what you want to see and do. That seems to be the trend of a lot of these seniors I'm getting right now, couples or 2 couples. I have one I'm working on for 2024, 5 people. The bucket list for the last 20 years. They tried booking me 2 years ago, then COVID hit. So they want to do a 7 to 8 day tour. So we'll do Cape Breton, Prince Edward Island, Nova Scotia. So that takes a bit more planning. On my tour, typically if I'm doing my cruise ship pickup, we're doing a little bit of Halifax. We hit the Titanic graveyard site. I give lots of details about the Titanic and our connection here from the sinking of the Titanic and how Halifax was very much involved. And then we'll head down towards Peggy's Cove. Off the cruise ships, we're really trying to time with their buses, and sometimes you can time when they get down there because they load up, they go down. So I tend to go off the beaten track down towards Terrace Bay. If you've never been down to Terrace Bay, gorgeous area, has a lot of history. Actually, is celebrating this year a pretty significant date, 150 years since 1873, when the SS Atlantic, which was a White Star Line ship, same ship as the Titanic owners, that sank off the coast of Terrace Bay. Largest maritime disaster of its century. Titanic, largest maritime disaster of its century. So, 1,000 people on board, just over 500 survivors. Not one woman, no woman survived. Only one child survived. So, there's a really interesting story behind that. But they're celebrating their 150-year anniversary of that. Swan Whites they're very much involved in that. That's where they're from. So. We go to little spots like that, then down to Peggy's Cove. We used to stop for lunch. Peggy's Cove has a Southwestern, fantastic restaurant. I generally don't stop there. Good meaty tour, and my tour that I would have done, say 2013, is vastly changed to 2023. I've learned a lot more history, correcting a lot of the information that I've learned from other tour guides. You know, walking through the Titanic graveyard site. And the information, oh yeah, it's Nova Scotia, there's Nova Scotia black granite. Well, it's black granite, but it's not from Nova Scotia, it's from New Brunswick. Little tidbits like that. If you've never been to Titanic graveyard sites, you'll see that John J. Dawson, Jack, that's not really Jack, but you guys know that, right? So, it's a Joseph Dawson, young gentleman that worked below the boiler room. So, lots of history I have about that, lots of facts that run in my head, but sometimes people have more history, some people are not. So. And if you're into photography, well then I know lots of cool little spots that we'll zip into just for that perfect photograph. I've done days where the water's just perfectly calm. There's some great places. Sometimes Mother Nature happens to shine upon us, sometimes she doesn't. And we do run rain or shine. The only time we don't run is if there's we're shut down by, well, it's not recommended to be out on the road, so. Typically when the guests arrive, I introduce myself, we talk, and if they're coming off the cruise ship, I have a little sign, blue sign saying this is your name, because the tour guides are all with the little placards and, you know, written on there, so I kind of try to stand out. We talked about earlier, well, if you're in business, you try to learn what's happening from other business and what are they doing well. Maybe you can copy what they're doing they should not do. So what's his story? I don't know all the stories, so I can flip through, right? Someone had asked me last year about whatever happened to the White Star Line. Did they go defunct, right? I didn't really know, so I researched. So by the end of the tour, by the time they had their little walk in Pecos Cove, I can tell you that in 1934, the White Star Line and the Cunard Line basically joined forces because they're both in financial financial trouble. The bank in overseas said the only way you guys will survive is if you guys join. So the White Star Line owned 40% and the Cunard owned about 60% because Cunard had 18 vessels, White Star had 10. If you were a White Star Line, you flew your flag above the Cunard. If you're the Cunard, you flew the other way. By 1949, basically the Cunard Line absorbed Nova Scotia. Oh, great. Here's a pin, right? You get a pin. Right? So, especially if you're in front, oh, you get a pin, and then everyone gets a pin. So I get these little Nova Scotia pins from Barbara Adams. So it's a small little thing that people just love. That's the first thing they're pinning them on their chest, right? So this year, so I could not get any Nova Scotia or Canadian flags. I actually got these online through Amazon. So that's what we have the next gift out to my guests. And if I know my guests have kids, I always have kids guides, or it depends on if I know the age. I usually have a little grab bag just to keep them occupied sometimes, right? There's a walking map as well. Typically what I did the last couple of years is at the end of the tour, I hand out these little photographs, and they're actually little postcards that I made up. So these are all photographs I've taken off an iPhone camera. Fantastic.
Who do you get to do your cards?
Vistaprint.
Yeah.
I do all the designs myself, right? So, being a business, there are certain rules and regulations to be a tour guide. Anybody can be a tour guide, but if you're operating, picking up passengers, there are commercial regulations. So I have to have commercial insurance, commercial vehicle, which here in Nova Scotia, a vehicle has to be inspected every 2 years. Mine is every 6 months. And it's a lot more detailed review that they do. They say you need new tires, you get new tires. If you say they need new ball joints, you gotta spend the money, right? My van, which I just brought back from storage, has 2 plates. If you're a commercial vehicle, you have a CD plate, and mine actually has an XP plate. My XP plate allows me to do Prince Edward Island, New Brunswick, right? So it allows me to tour all those areas. And I'm one of the guys that are actually doing multi-day tours, small groups, right? I have another tour company we've been chatting about doing larger group tours of up to 10 people. We'll probably start doing maybe 2024 if the business is a good fit. All over Europe, from Scotland, Ireland, Netherlands, Luxembourg, China. The young grandmother from China was fantastic. The daughter was moved over to Canada when she was 18 to Toronto, moved to Winnipeg. Her mother comes over for 6 months a year. Spoke very little English. Every place that she went, her eyes were wide open. Like, it was a beautiful day, and she's doing this. I said, what is your mother doing? She goes, space. So what do you mean? They don't get space in China.
Or stars.
Right? So it's getting those interactions, right? So there's certain guests that kind of, they stick out. So yeah, we're looking forward to a very, very busy year this year. My first tour is April 22nd and 24th. Actually, my first tour will be April the 11th. I'm taking the board members who are able to come to do a little bit of tour down towards Pecos Cove. So it'll be a 6-hour tour. We'll do a little bit of Halifax, Terrence Bay, Pecos Cove.
Do a promotion if anybody wants to be part of the board.
Fun.
There we go. Right. So we'll do two things. A bit of a nice networking for the board, but also shake off a little bit of rust for me. By the end of the year, I have so many facts floating back and forth, and they're all out there. So there's a good chance to get out there and see what's going on in Pecos Cove. If you've not been down to Pegaso over the last couple of years, it's fantastic what they've done with regards to the boardwalk and the money investment. To me, it's long overdue. It's safe for people to walk down there now versus no sidewalks. They have more washrooms. It's a fantastic area. So
It'd be good to do a 6-hour tour for our house hunting trip people that come in from out of province and just give them 6 hours.
I
to
you know
go.
what I could leave your card. We can talk.
Yeah.
We can talk with that
Yeah,
for sure, right?
I was
So.
just gonna ask for your price list or
Yeah,
whatever, you know, and it'd be
My-
worth their while.
Yeah, so on
Now that you do that, because we have like family and friends that are like, hey, we want to come to Nova Scotia, and like I think that would be a super cool thing to do with that because it saves me making it up. I don't know.
Do you want facts or fun?
Yeah.
Right? Exactly. I'll
or a little bit of
Facts
extra
are
for-
first.
yeah.
I'm Irish, I'll make anything up. But that's super cool. Like,
What I have found with the people I've had from all over the world is we're all pretty much the same. We have the same dreams, same aspirations. We just live in different parts, right? So it's great to know the different people, and I've made some really close friends over the years. I mean, I talk about Mr. and Mrs. Claus, Larry and Janice, and their sister Trinette. Larry would never answer to Larry. Hey, Larry, get him for 17 days. Hey, Santa, yeah, yes, no, right? He still texts me now, so of course, I goes, ho, 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 oh, Santa's texting me, right? So he does have a maybe list, by the way, just to let you know. So, and anyways, I appreciate your time. If you have any questions, you can reach out. Actually, no, you guys look good for quizzes.